The United States is losing the competition with China.
国外最大的视频网站油管上叫杰马丁秀的美国博主发布了一条名为“中国还是美国会先崩溃”的视频。
That the Chinese made the decision to welcome foreign enterprise, to say to them, bring us your technology because you are ahead of us in a dozen ways, which they said. If you read Chinese journals, they've been full of that for years. Much of what those Chinese journals did was to take from the United States and try to figure out how to do the same thing a little bit better. But 90% of what they did was learn from the United States. And, and they paid for that in all the ways they normally, nobody stole that's childish. Nobody put a gun to the heads of the American companies that went over and made the deal. We will give you our technology. We will show it to you. We'll teach it to you. You got to give us the labor. You got to give us access to the market. We're getting profit out of it. You're getting technology. That was the deal. That was a deal on the table, crystal clear. To represent it now is really cheating. It's like my saying, I'm going to give you $5. You give me your shirt. And we make the exchange. I now have $5. You have my $5. I got your shirt. And then I start screaming, he stole my shirt. No, stop. You didn't steal my shirt. We had a deal. You may have changed your mind. You may regret it. That's another matter. But nobody stole anything from you. And the Chinese, they resent that because for them, and I've had these conversations, for them, that's the 100 years of humiliation again. Because what they hear is the subtext. You're too stupid, you're too backward, you're too Chinese to figure these things out, and so you must have stolen it. You couldn't have done it.
这就是西方污蔑看不起中国人的方式。他们不认为我们能做到，但是我们就是做到了，并且某些方面完全超越了。后面沃尔夫教授说，美国的硅谷很长一段时间一直是技术中心，但是硅谷所做的很多事情也是借鉴别人。现代技术的进步就是学习、迭代和改进，不能因为技术进步发生逆转，你就接受不了了。这其实很双标。举了一个例子，在哥伦布发现新大陆前100年，中国就有一个叫郑和的人带领300艘船、27000人和180名医生在海上旅行了1万多英里，甚至带着准确的地图。而哥伦布带着3艘船和90个人，他们甚至不知道自己在哪里，漫无目的的旅行3000多英里，运气好撞上了美洲大陆。这也是证明了技术先进的众多例子之一。当时的中国对于西方而言，无疑是一个庞然大物。当时的中华帝国因为鸦片战争而衰落，衰落的根本就是经济是在封建阶级结构之上，绝大部分经济掌握在最上层定制规则的人手里，那么这个文明衰落是绝对的，就像当年的罗马帝国。但是你不能说之前的中华帝国弱，相反那时候还非常强。整个东南亚大部分都是中华帝国的附属国，而且统治时间非常长，西方在那个时期也没有能与其相媲美的。沃尔夫教授说的很啰嗦润色的话非常多，其主要意思就是现在的中国有和美国掰手腕的能力，而且这个对手在几十年前还非常的贫穷落后，你接受不了现实，就四处抹黑他们的国家，抹黑他们的制度，抹黑他们的一切。但是你没考虑过，在你不是世界中心之前，你也贫穷落后过，而在别人贫穷落后之前，也同样的无比发达强大过。
I have heard from a very small number of individuals, like maybe George Friedman of Geopolitical Insights. He's very bullish on America, and he describes the rise of populism, the division, which you alluded to, in America as growing pains of an adolescent empire. He's like, this is traditional American rage. The protests and riots you see in the street, even down to that, even down to the violence. This is a consequence of a free economy that can't express themselves in the street. And we're going through some very severe growing pains right now. The other side of it is the brightest days of America's future. Now you can step outside the borders of America and say, well, look at the recession of, empire influence, right? And, the way that China is sort of co-opting the global south, or you could say the global majority. I mean, that's who lives in those countries, and the most favorable demographics, by the way, in those countries as well. But maybe back to George Friedman's comments about this is not the decay of the American empire. These are growing pains of an adolescent empire, and we're still young in our journey. What's your take on that, Richard?
He imagines it that way.
Right.
I don't see that. If you say to me, is that a possible story? Yeah, it's possible. We all do the best we can. but the notion, the imagery of the adolescent, I wish I could buy into that. I don't see. I see the behavior of old. I see the behavior of old mechanisms held on to. The Chinese a year ago began to deliver around the world a statistical result, which the United Nations endorsed. Doesn't mean it's true or anything, but it went like this. Over the last 10 years, we have raised 800 million people out of poverty here in China. Their average income went from X to Y. Y is higher than X by enough to say they are no longer in poverty, they are in modest, or whatever the terms are that the UN uses. Okay. It doesn't matter whether it's exaggerated or not.
沃尔夫教授又举了一个很长很啰嗦的例子，大概意思就是尼日利亚的人口只比美国少了50%，但是 GDP 相差了50倍。尼日利亚的人民很贫穷痛苦，作为一个英联盟成员国，和其他成员相比贫穷太多。无论是欧洲还是美国，都可以帮助他们改善这些问题，但是他们就是不做，他们只给了尼日利亚语言，而尼日利亚也一直在水深火热之中。而现在中国人在那里建造桥梁、建造学校，这是不是很讽刺？现在的欧洲还有美国就像一辆即将撞墙的火车，司机明明有力量可以拉停火车，但是售票员和司机只顾着聚会，而完全没有意识到要撞墙了，还以为自己在快速行驶中，这无疑是慢性死亡。
I think the Nigeria example is very important because it brings us, from my perspective, back to the front end of this conversation where we talked about China's ascent over the last 100 years, how quickly and how successful that's been. And when you look at Nigeria, and the GDP, 50 times larger in America, we're kind of like, obviously, like Nigeria's a mess, right? Like, but also the way to look at that is like massive upside potential, right? Yeah. Massive upside potential. And with the right investment, access to cheap technology, consumer goods, which China will continue to provide.
Here's an example that might crystallize it in people's mind. If you go to Lagos, you will see huge, it's one of the great cities of the world. It's an enormous city, right? I'm going to exaggerate, but not by much. Everybody's working with their little Apple telephone. That telephone, which is making a lot of money because you can sell that to those people, they save up because for them it's an enormous expense. But it's also a window on what their economy doesn't have. Yeah. It's a window on everything the Chinese want to get across to them. Mm-hmm. So you can see that by giving them that, which is profitable, so we do it.
里面专业术语太多，小编翻译的特别痛苦。解释一下大概什么意思。中国帮助尼日利亚建设，是因为尼日利亚有廉价的劳动力和一个巨大的经济市场，可以把中国的产品卖到尼日利亚来赚取利润。欧洲、美国什么都没做，就不要去指手画脚的说中国不能这么做。接下来说，很多人猜测中美竞争力的结果，但是有战争的趋势、暗淡的前景、大量的夸张、耸人听闻的分析，都认为会是第3次世界大战的前兆。沃尔夫教授以美国独立战争为例，脱离英国并成功崛起。而现在中国的崛起和独立战争时美国崛起相似，大英帝国落下帷幕，美国成为世界霸主。而现在这种事情好像也正在发生。当时的英国和现在的美国多么相似，看似强壮却有着一身病的世界霸主。当然，作为一个美国人，不希望这种事情发生。然后沃尔夫教授又说了一些关于政党之间的话题，这个话题我不过多阐述，大家有兴趣可以自己去看看。最后给大家翻译一些视频热评，评价很多，我把翻译好的评论展示出来，大家放大自己看。